necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday out there, pushing the limits. Thank you so much for joining us. PTL Nation, yes, that's right. Occupy Democrats Network, Washington Press Network, the FMAM dial, KSHP, my personal YouTube page, at PTL Radio Show. We're on TikTok, we're on Twitch, we're everywhere. And, of course, my personal website, pushingthelimits.live. Very happy to announce coming up later on in the program, we are going to be joined by the man himself, David Pacman. He's one of my favorite left-leaning host, very popular host, and he knows who I am now, and he did a segment on me, and we will be talking with him a little bit later on in the program. So certainly looking forward to David Pacman joining us. I got to start off the show again, and it seems like every single day it's something new that comes out of the orange orangutan's mouth that is dangerous, but this is probably one of the more dangerous words that he has used, at least in the last first month of his presidency. He said a lot of dangerous things. He's said a lot of stupid things. And by the way, he's playing golf now for the third day in a row. But if that doesn't make it bad enough, we remember what he said in regards to Vladimir Zelensky and Ukraine starting the war. And if you forgot that, I'm going to play it for you here again. And there's a reason why I'm playing this, because he said something this morning that is beyond the pale. But this is what Donald Trump said about the war in Ukraine, claiming that, quote, Ukraine started it.
I think I have the power to end this war, and I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine.
Ukraine did not start the war. Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, and a lot of people have been murdered because of it. Plenty of soldiers have lost their lives, families, children, because Putin decided to invade Ukraine because he is an evil, murderous dictator. Now, if that's not bad enough, because in my opinion, saying Ukraine started this war is like saying the Jews started the Holocaust. It's that bad. But it gets worse. Because today, Donald Trump called Ukraine's president, Vladimir Zelensky, quote, a dictator. And this is escalating now the public war, which Donald Trump said he would end within 24 hours. Now, listen, typical MAGA Republicans on Capitol Hill today, well, it might have been taken out of context. Well, I disagree with the president, but those are his words, and he has a right to his own words. So many of these Republicans are such cowards. They have no backbone. We already knew that. Calling Zelensky a dictator. He has never even come close to saying that about Vladimir Putin. Not even close. As I've said before, and I say again, Donald Trump speaks out more negatively to politicians in this country than he does evil, murderous dictators around the world. Putin, you could talk about Kim Jong-un because he admires dictators. Now, normally I wouldn't quote Mike Pence because he is an imbecile as well. And for 4 years, he did nothing to stop this horrible, horrible man because Mike Pence is a coward. Too little, too late, but Mike Pence did take to social media today. He said, Mr. President, Ukraine did not start this war. Russia launched an unprovoked and brutal invasion, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives. The road to peace must be built on the truth. Now, obviously, I agree with Mike Pence on that one, but this is the guy who stood by Donald Trump for 4 years. Senator Lisa Murkowski said after President called Zelensky a dictator today, quote, I would like to see that in context because I would certainly never refer to President Zelensky as a dictator. The context of it is that Vladimir Putin is Donald Trump's bitch, or the other way around, I should say. But that's the context of it. Vladimir Putin's bitch is Donald Trump. Don't like that language? Too bad. That's exactly what is going on here. That's the context of it. What would we have said decades ago if our president said the Holocaust was started by the Jews? That's how clear-cut this is. Hundreds of thousands of innocent people have died because Vladimir Putin decided to invade our allies because he wants to make sure that Ukraine does not get into NATO. And, of course, he wants some land as well. We know that. We know that. We absolutely know that. But the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, is that there are Republicans on Capitol Hill that are defending this man. There are Republicans on Capitol Hill that are saying, well, he's doing a lot more than Joe Biden. No, he's not. He's causing more damage to this country every single day with his idiotic comments and idiotic statements. But I mean, is there anything worse than this? Calling Vladimir Zelensky a dictator? Are you effing kidding me? Are you kidding me? Where are you, Republicans? Where are you today? Can you imagine if Joe Biden did this? Think about that. And it is interesting, isn't it? Because he certainly made a lot of false promises, didn't he? He said the war would be over within 24 hours. In fact, he said the war would be over before he even got into office. He would just pick up the phone. It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, the war in Ukraine is worse now than it was a month ago. They're not any closer to agreement. I would say they're further apart. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict is worse now than it was a month ago. Yes, I'm glad several people have been brought back to their families, but Hamas has broken a ceasefire agreement. The world is still on fire. Inflation through the roof. Egg prices, grocery prices, gas prices up all over the country. And do we remember? Because it wasn't that long ago that Donald Trump was campaigning and he said he would fix inflation. Then till now, have a listen to this.
Starting the day I take the oath of office, I will rapidly drive prices down and we will make America affordable again. We're going to make it affordable again.
Yeah.
And inflation is back. I'm only here for 2.5 weeks.
That was January.
Inflation is back.
For a week.
No, think of it. Inflation's back. And they said, oh, Trump, I had nothing to do with it.
I had nothing to do with it. Boy, he really has changed his tune, hasn't he? He's gone from, since the day one when I get into office, I'm going to slash prices and they're going to go way down to, well, I've only been here for several weeks and, it's not my fault. I didn't do it. More false promises from Donald Trump. The war is certainly not over. And inflation and prices are going through the roof. But blame Joe Biden. If that doesn't work, blame Pete Buttigieg. If that doesn't work, blame George Soros. If that doesn't work, blame it on DEI. If that doesn't work, blame it on migrants. It's the playbook, and maybe blame it on drag queens. I don't know. I'll throw that one in there, too, and trans people. This is what Donald Trump and the MAGA base do, and it is indefensible, once again, his words of calling Vladimir Zelensky a dictator. It is embarrassing, it is disgusting, and it is ridiculous. And did you guys have the opportunity to see the idiot Sean Hannity? That's what he is. He's a dangerous idiot. Dad bod Sean Hannity. Did you see this interview with Elon and Donald Trump? I mean, you want to talk about a total embarrassment. And Elon, we all know that Elon is very strange socially. We know that Elon is a weird guy. That's okay. I don't have a problem with that. But this interview did not go very well for a lot of different reasons. And this is Donald Trump calling Elon a great guy. Have a listen to this.
If it is.
If there's a conflict, he won't be involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want that, and he won't want it.
Right, and also I'm getting a sort of a daily proctology exam here. It's not like I'll be getting away from something in the dead of night.
Welcome to D.C. If you want a friend, get a dog.
Well, I do have a dog, but I also have friends. My dog loves me, poor little creature.
You know the truth with this?
I need to bring him to D.C.
I know every businessman. I know the good ones, the bad ones, the smart ones, the lucky ones. I know them. This guy's he's a brilliant guy. He's a great guy. He's got tremendous imagination and scientific imagination, far beyond, you keep talking about a technologist and all, but you're much more than a technologist. You are that. But he's also a good person. He's a very good person, and he wants to see the country do well. And I know a lot of great business people, really great business people, but, they're not really, in some cases, very good people. And I know people that would try and take advantage of the situation. This guy's somebody that really cares for the country, and I saw that very early on. I saw it really a long time ago when I got to know him. He's a very different kind of a character. That's why, who loves him? Young people that are very smart and that love the country.
Yeah, there's a lot of young people like his kids that don't love him very much. There's a lot of people that he had children with, the mothers of his children that don't like him very much. He loves the country, but he doesn't seem to love his own kids. At least he's not a father to his own kids, with 13 kids spread out across the country with multiple women. Yeah, he loves the country and he's a great guy, but he forgot you should probably be a father too. Yeah, that really sounds like a great guy. What a wonderful guy and what a great guy who spreads conspiracy theories on social media. He says, well, nobody's going to bat 1,000. Yeah, but when you're wrong, you should admit you're wrong and you should correct yourself. He doesn't do that either. But let's just put them all out on the honor test. Now, you don't think he's a liar? Here's a perfect example of what I am talking about in this interview. Now, we all know those two brave astronauts that are stuck in space for a little bit, and they're going to be coming home soon. So I want you to listen to what Elon Musk had to say about these astronauts up there, and he said it was political. Have a listen to this.
You're committed to getting to Mars. You're committed to rescue. You're going to help rescue next month 2 astronauts that I think were abandoned. They dispute that in an interview.
At the president's request or instruction, we are accelerating the return of the astronauts, which was postponed kind of to a ridiculous degree.
They got left in space.
They've been there. They were supposed to be there 8 days. They're there almost 300.
Biden.
They were yes, they were left up there for political reasons, which is not good.
Okay, it's not good.
So Donald Trump, you hear him say Biden, and then Elon Musk says it was political. The astronauts were just interviewed the other day on CNN. You could look at the interview on YouTube. They were just interviewed on YouTube. They were on CNN with Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper asked them a very specific question, and they answered and said it had nothing, zero, to do with politics. There, once again, you have Donald Trump and Elon Musk spreading conspiracy theories. Biff, also known as Don Jr., who's a complete imbecile, tweeted earlier today about the lying of Social Security and the $4.5 trillion that is being sent out to dead people. That has already been debunked, but yet Don Jr., also known as Biff, tweeted it out today. We still hear the conspiracy theories about condoms being sent to Gaza. And on the 3rd day in a row, Donald Trump is playing golf. We had these natural disasters that took place, several states underwater. People have lost their lives. It's a horrible tragedy. Forget about Donald Trump even going down there to any of these states. He hasn't even mentioned it, by the way. And he went over to Daytona 500, did a little spin around the track, cost the American taxpayer millions of dollars. And for the last 3 days, he's played golf. He played golf on Monday. He played golf on Tuesday. He's playing golf today. By the way, an 18-hole round of golf with Donald Trump lasts anywhere between 4 to 5 hours of his time. More American taxpayer money. You know how much money it costs for the Secret Service when the president decides to play golf? 3rd day in a row. 4 days in a row, he's been spending our taxpayer dollars. That's right. He's doing all this while Elon Musk runs the country. And yesterday, he didn't even know or understand that the head of the Social Security Administration resigned. He was asked about it, and he didn't even know. You're the president of the United States. And he didn't know that SpaceX employees were working at the FAA, DOD, and he claimed Medicaid wasn't being cut when it's being cut massively. He has no idea what's going on around him. But they say, oh, Joe Biden was in the bunker. Joe Biden didn't know what he was doing. Donald Trump has no idea what's going on. None. Zero. All he cares about is getting his fat ass out of bed, putting on 8 layers of orange makeup. And while we're learning, there's another air crash that has just taken place in Arizona. And we'll get you more information on that. But I'm sure gutting the FAA had nothing to do with that, right? I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Just a coincidence that these planes are flying out of the sky. Just a coincidence that gas prices have gone up. Just a coincidence that your eggs are unaffordable. Just a coincidence that unemployment rate is going up. Just a coincidence that the NASDAQ is going down. Just a coincidence, right? It's all Joe Biden's fault. It's got nothing to do with the Trump administration, right? It's sick. And you people who voted for him must have buyer's remorse by now, I would assume. As we are learning that there was 2 planes that were involved in a crash this morning at the Marana Regional Airport in Arizona. At least 1 person is confirmed dead. What is going on? We have more plane crashes and plane incidents in an aircraft collision, more plane crashes. that we've had in a month here than we've had in 15 years. But we're supposed to be led to believe that this is just a coincidence? What is going on? And the excuse I hear is, well, we have 50,000 employees. So when you get rid of just 300 or 400 employees, that doesn't affect what we are doing. Oh, really? Then how do you explain what is going on every day in this country? What took place in Toronto the other day? What took place in Arizona today? How do you explain all these crashes? It's never Donald Trump's fault. They never take responsibility for anything. And that's why you have this idiot Duffy who's in charge of the FAA, who obviously has no idea what he is doing. And we've had all these plane crashes in D.C., in Pennsylvania, in Washington, in Alaska, in Arizona, California, Georgia, and Toronto. Is it just a coincidence? Yeah, just a coincidence. That's like saying it's just a coincidence that 2 planes hit the World Trade Center buildings on 9/11. It was pilot error. How stupid are you people? How stupid can you be? Now, I want the investigations to be thorough. Obviously, this can't just be mechanical errors, right? There's more to it than that. It could be air traffic control. Let the investigation run its course. But if you're going to sit here and you're going to look at me and you're going to say that this is just a coincidence, then you're an idiot. Sadly, many of you already are because you voted for Donald Trump. This is what you get. The world is on fire. There is no peace in the Middle East. It's worse now than it was 4 weeks ago. There is certainly no peace in Ukraine. It's worse now than it was 4 weeks ago. And now our allies, and you're calling President Zelensky a dictator, and Ukraine started the war. But if you talk to these MAGA fools, or if you listen to Newsmax all day, which I pray and hope you don't, but if you do, they will lead you to believe that it was Zelensky's fault. And should we be surprised? Because they'll say Trump has been more harder on Russia than anybody. Really? Sending him test kits in the middle of COVID, taking his side over our own CIA and FBI, praising Vladimir Putin almost every single day. We have to hear from Donald Trump how smart he is and how savvy he is, and now blaming Zelensky and Ukraine for the war. Every single day with this guy, it's something new. He's pissing off all of our allies, Trudeau, the president of Mexico, all of our allies for no reason other than threatening 25% tariffs, and we've gotten literally nothing in return. I am sick of this. Aren't you? I am sick of this. And again, Fatty is playing golf again today. It's the 3rd day in a row he's been on the golf course. It's ridiculous. And we're learning that, Donald Trump has been lounging in Florida for 4 days, and he just took Air Force One for a 25-minute flight from Palm Beach to Miami. This is a trip that has cost taxpayers nearly $1 million. And most presidents would have just used the motorcade, which would have been cheaper and it would have saved the American taxpayer money, but not Donald Trump. I don't want to hear about Doge, and I don't want to hear you MAGA idiots talking about conserving money. This guy is spending millions and millions of taxpayer dollars every single day because he's a lazy fat ass who doesn't care. He's a slob who goes on the golf course every day, bragging, about playing golf the other day with members of the Buffalo Bills. By the way, all white players. I'm sure that's just a coincidence too, by the way. All white players. But yet this was the same guy who said Barack Obama plays too much golf. And these are the people out there on the far right that say, man, he's a 24/7 president. He's always working for us. Oh, really? Explain the last 4 days. Explain the first 4 weeks of this administration. Please explain that. Please explain that. His little trip to the Super Bowl when he left at halftime cost the American taxpayer about $20 million. That's all. His little motorcade dance when he went around the motorcade on the track there and then left and went back home so he can, tweet on the crapper, Truth Social, lies, playing golf every day. That's why we call him President Musk, because Donald Trump isn't doing anything except saying stupid things that can harm the country and the world. Yeah, Vladimir Zelensky's a dictator. Yeah, okay. You know how we know that's not true? Do you know how we know that Vladimir Zelensky is a dictator? We know that Vladimir Zelensky is not a dictator because if he was, Donald Trump would admire him, and we know that's not the case. And we have Donald Trump now, as you see this tweet on Truth Social, saying, think of it, and he talks about, a comedian in Zelensky, talked to the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had the start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. Well, that's interesting. You said the war would be over in 24 hours, Mr. President. You said the war would be over in 24 hours. Notice how he never criticizes Vladimir Putin for anything. And he calls Zelensky a dictator again, by the way, in that Truth Social tweet, which is really lie social. Let's call it for what it is. It's lie social. He called Vladimir Zelensky a dictator. He blamed Ukraine for starting this war, completely unprovoked by Ukraine. He said Ukraine started it. And he gets this American hostage to come home. I'm glad that he's home. And there is no doubt that this was in the agreement. We're going to make sure Ukraine doesn't get into NATO. We're going to give you concessions. I'm going to call Vladimir Zelensky a dictator. Okay, we'll hand over this prisoner for you. Okay, deal. Thank you. What a great negotiator. The world is on fire. Inflation through the roof, up 3%. Who do we blame? Is it just a coincidence? Is it Joe Biden's fault? Whose fault is it? George Soros? No. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. And this comes just one day after the White House has lied about Social Security payments to those that are deceased. I want to take some phone calls when we come back at 702-221-7283. And again, that number is 702-221-7283. Please check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. If you go to pushingthelimits.live, you're supporting an independently owned radio show. And when you go to my website, you can buy PTL gear, PTL Nation gear, shirts, hats, beanies, you name it. We sell it on there at pushingthelimits.live. And you could also make donations at pushingthelimits.live. And we appreciate your support. We're also in the Super Chat, where if you make a donation, we will read your comments and or your questions live on the air as well. So we're looking forward to having David Pacman joining us. He's going to be joining us in hour number 2 today. You're not going to want to miss that. Love David. He's one of the best in the business. So we are going to take your calls next. That number is 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you would like to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283, which is the number to call if you want to join the program. It is one of the most interactive shows you will find anywhere, and that is why we love it when you call in. Thank you to Natalie very much. Natalie made a donation. Natalie, we really appreciate your purchase. She went to pushingthelimits.live. And I also want to thank Tina with her very generous donation. Tina, thank you so much for your donation. We really do appreciate you. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in 90 seconds with your phone calls. We're talking about Donald Trump today calling Vladimir Zelensky, quote, a dictator. Is there anybody that can defend this? Your call's next. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercials, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at radioyou101.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned, we have David Pacman that's going to be joining us today in hour number 2. Myron Gaines is going to be joining us tomorrow. Very controversial guy who's been very, I guess you could say, positive when it comes to Kanye West. I know and he's a big Trump supporter. Happens to be African American. We're going to be talking to him tomorrow on the program, so that is going to be very, very interesting. We're in the Super Chat where you can make your donations there. We'll read your comments and questions on the air. Maybe you have a question you want me to ask David Pacman. Check us out on YouTube at PTL Radio Show. We're also live on TikTok as well, and we're taking your phone calls. Thank you, Keith, for your donation. The phone calls are 702-221-7283 is the number to call. We're talking about Donald Trump calling Vladimir Zelensky a dictator just after the fact. And a day later, when he said that Ukraine started the war. I mean, this is despicable. And Donald Trump is repeating Russian disinformation. That's what he's been doing on a daily basis. Let's call it for what it is. Donald Trump is Vladimir Putin's. I mean, listen, I've said this before and I say it again. Donald Trump is the bitch of Vladimir Putin. If some of you don't like that language, I'm just telling you, that's the way it is right now. Just look at Donald Trump's behavior. All right, I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get to the phone calls right now. Let's start off with Alberto, who's calling from California. Hello, Alberto.
Hey, how's it going? Big fan, man.
Thank you.
What is going on with our lame duck Congress and Senate? Not even doing anything about this man and his out-of-control rhetoric that he continues spewing.
Yeah.
Just vomit after vomit after vomit. Him and the South African Hitler.
Well, I'll
This
say
is
this.
ridiculous.
I'll say this. Senator Lisa Murkowski is a perfect example of what you are talking about, sir, because she was asked about this in D.C. today, and she said, I would like to see the context of what he said. And the context is Vladimir Putin owns Donald Trump. That is his bitch. That is the context. And for any of these Republicans out there, I mean, John McCain would be spitting in his grave right now. Ronald Reagan spitting in his grave. I mean, this is just, it's a new level.
You know what?
It's terrible.
And I'm going to go even further. Zelensky is the definition of a true patriot that leads his country.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is nothing more than a bootlicker, a Benedict Arnold, a Russian spy. That's what he is. He's a Russian spy.
Sir, I don't agree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. And I would say this: what does Vladimir Putin have on Donald Trump? I tend to believe that Trump owes the Kremlin a lot of money. But I'm not sure if that's true. And the reason why I say that is because he's treated Kim Jong-un the same way. He treats dictators the same way around the world. He praises them. He looks up to them. And meanwhile, he attacks our own politicians because he disagrees with them on policy. You know, look at the way he's treated a Mike Pence compared to Vladimir Putin. It's like night and day. This is the president of the United States, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your call. Let's go to Ray. Ray is calling out of Florida. Hey, Ray, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian, I love your presentation and your language. That's the way I feel.
Thank you.
Pertaining to Social Security to dead people, I've been widowed more than once and had minor children. Social Security sent me, whatever you want to call it, for the minor children, but it comes through in their dead parents' name.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that happens with that. Mm-hmm. And Trump's been a lying bitch all his life. Mm-hmm. He's a no-good scumbag.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to take him out.
Well, let's not go there. Let's not talk about taking him out. We certainly don't condone violence, but I think I understand where you're going with, take him out of office. That's not going to happen. He won the presidency. All we can do is call out his rhetoric every day. All we can do is call out the lies, the danger that he presents to this nation. And I do appreciate your call. Thank you, Dave, for your donation on the YouTube Super Chat. He says either the military steps in or it's time to consider the true meaning of the Second Amendment. I'm not calling for it. I'm saying we're headed that way. Dave, I don't necessarily disagree with you. Hyperspace, thank you for your donation as well. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you do want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Frank. Frank is calling out of Wisconsin. Hey, Frank, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian, you are right about the supporters from Trump. I get on Facebook, everything that tends to Trump. It's 4 years we had good things happening. I'm like, really? You guys still bet and believe this guy?
But here's the thing. But here's the thing, right? When we talked about, let me use Russia-Ukraine as an example of what you're talking about, if you don't mind, Frank. So,
go ahead.
So, months ago, years ago, I said, why is it that Donald Trump doesn't call out Vladimir Putin for what he is, which is an evil, murderous dictator? Hundreds of thousands of innocent people have lost their lives because Putin, okay? And I said, why is it that he's kissing the tail of Putin? And I heard all these MAGA morons, they still say it today, nobody's tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. Now, listen. That's laughable, okay? It's laughable. But
yes, right.
I knew that it would get to this point where I wasn't sure that he would call Zelensky a dictator. I didn't think he'd get that far. But I knew he would kiss the ring of Putin. And when he kept saying over and over again when he was campaigning, I'm going to end the war within 24 hours, I said to myself, what the hell is he going to offer Vladimir Putin? You think Putin's just going to raise the white flag? Of course not. So I said, the only way this is going to happen is if they take advantage of Ukraine, which is clearly what Donald Trump is trying to do, offer ridiculous concessions for a man who invaded our allies. And that's exactly what has taken place. But because Zelensky is a tough man, I believe he is a patriot, he will not allow this to happen, and he will not allow his people to be bullied, and he will not be bullied. And Donald Trump, it's only going to get worse. The rhetoric is only going to get worse. The more Zelensky pushes back, the more Donald Trump is going to kiss the ring of Vladimir Putin.
Yes, yes. And one more thing, Brian.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the little girl down in Texas that took?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And for those of you that don't know this story, and it's a terrible tragedy, sir, and I'm glad you brought that up, though, because it's important. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she was 11 years old. I might have that wrong. But there's a young girl that learned about immediate members of her family that were going to be deported, and she took her own life. Folks, what are we doing? What are we doing? Now, I understand that there have been a small percentage of undocumented immigrants that have committed some horrific crimes. It's terrible. I wish those crimes never happened. But a story that you will not hear on Fox News today, a story that you will not hear on Newsmax today or most right-wing entities, is a young girl who took her own life. Life was just starting for her. And she learned that some of her immediate family members were most likely going to be captured and deported. By the way, this is a young girl who didn't have any violent criminals in her family. Members of her family who have been living here for a while now who pay taxes. And as a young girl, go back to when you were 9, 10, 11 years old. And if you learned that your father or your mother or multiple members of your immediate family were going to be deported and you might never get an opportunity to see them again. That's what that little girl had to go through. And I am so sorry to that little girl's family, her parents, her friends. This is an awful tragedy. And I implore and ask these MAGA supporters who are so on board with Donald Trump, no matter what he does and what he says, is this what you wanted? What if that was your daughter? Is this the country that you wanted to live in? So sorry to that little girl's family. It's something that should have never happened. We can do both at the same time. We can deport violent criminals, and we can also show compassion for those that have been living in this country for decades that pay their taxes. Why is it that the far right can't show compassion for people? Why? You can tell me the answer to that. Thank you, Crew Socks, for your donation. We appreciate you very, very much. And there's a lot of other people on the Super Chat that are being extremely generous, and we appreciate all of you for making your donations on the YouTube Super Chat. Speaking of donations, I hope that little girl has a GoFundMe page set up or something for the family. Thank you, Michelle Jackson, for your generosity. Michelle said there was a plane crash yesterday in Honolulu with 2 people that were killed. I'll be honest with you, Michelle, I didn't even know about that. Plane hit a building and exploded. No one in the building at the time, Michelle says. Now the plane crews, crash in Arizona. What the hell is going on? Michelle, it's a really good question that you ask. There's one thing we know for sure. Donald Trump is now the president of the United States. 702, thank you for your donation. 702-221-7283. Let's go to David. Why don't we go to David? Let's go to David. He's calling in from Pennsylvania. Hi, David.
Hey, Ron. I noticed before you were talking about, you were having frustrations with Trump spending taxpayer money on the, motorcade and everything. Does spending all that money, is that logic applied to the hundreds of billions we're giving to Ukraine for a war they're never going to win?
No, and here's why.
Okay.
First of all, it's not a necessity, and people aren't dying, and you can tell me if you disagree, if somebody would have lost their life if Donald Trump decided not to go to Daytona 500. So let me just ask you a series of questions, and I'll make my point, and then I'll give you the opportunity to expand. Okay? Fair, Dave?
Yeah.
Fair enough? Okay, thank you. If Donald Trump decided not to go to Daytona 500, would anybody lost their life?
Probably not.
Probably not. I agree with you. I would say no. If Donald Trump didn't decide to play golf on Monday, would families been kidnapped? Would any soldiers have died? Would anybody would have lost their lives?
Probably not.
Probably not. I agree. So would that be the same with Tuesday and today? If Donald Trump decided not to play golf, nobody would have lost their lives. I think it's a pretty fair thing to say, right, Dave? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're comparing, and then I'll let you respond. You're comparing a war where an evil, murderous dictator decided to take over a sovereign nation in Ukraine to Donald Trump spending taxpayer money because he wanted to take a 5-minute joyride around the track. Now, listen, Dave, if you think we've sent too much money to Ukraine, okay, I think that's a very fair conversation.
Do you think we have?
Okay, that's a fair conversation, and I'll have that with you, but let's rewind a little bit. Can you agree with me that analogy that you made, or trying to make a comparison to somebody taking a joyride in the motorcade around Daytona?
No, not at all.
Okay, you're the one who brought up Donald Trump in a motorcade on a speedway and playing golf.
I'm asking, do you have a problem with how taxpayer money is spent? And what? $500 billion? Why not bump it up to $2 or $3 trillion at this point?
Okay, fine, I'll answer that, but you should not have brought up a joyride to Daytona 500 because that has nothing to do with war where innocent people are losing their lives.
I'm talking about taxpayer money being spent.
Okay, well, first of all, Donald Trump shouldn't have gone to Daytona 500 for a joyride. Having a joyride and spending $20 million for a joyride is not the same as families that are losing loved ones and people that are losing their lives. Okay,
I said, do you have a problem with the money being spent? And I'm asking that question.
Sure.
You're kind of evading it.
I'm not evading it. You're the one who got me upset when you're bringing up a Donald Trump joyride to war. So now I'm going to answer the question about Ukraine. First of all, I do find it interesting that when talking about the war in the Ukraine, and I'm happy to bring up money with you, but what you didn't bring up today was the fact that Donald Trump called Vladimir Zelensky a dictator. So I will answer your question.
I'm perfectly willing to bring that up, but I just wanted to talk about Ukraine.
Okay, so in good faith, I believe in good faith, we can have that conversation if you could answer this. Do you think Vladimir Putin is a dictator? Let's start there.
I do.
Okay, I agree. Do you think Vladimir Zelensky is a dictator?
I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I mean, look, they suspended the elections in Ukraine because of the war. I think that's completely out of line.
That doesn't mean
in alignment with Ukrainian law, which it is, but it's still absurd.
So hold on.
I mean,
hold on.
Sure.
You're saying 50-50 on Zelensky being a dictator because they didn't have an election in the middle of a war, which I think most people would understand. And you're saying,
I don't think people would understand
okay,
that.
well,
I think that's completely ridiculous.
Who do you want to win the war, Russia or Ukraine? Speaking of ridiculous, who do you want to win? Because if we're going to have
I'd like Ukraine to win, but I also live in the real world, and I know that Ukraine lost that war the day it started. They're only being propped up by the U.S. again to the tune of $500 billion. Where is the line going to be drawn? How much money do we have to spend on this?
Okay, hold on. Let me just hear a clear and present answer today. Who do you want, if you had to flip a switch today, who would you want to win, Ukraine or Russia?
I said Ukraine. I don't know if you've heard
you said probably Ukraine, and then you gave a long. Let's be clear here. Regardless of what if you think we spent.
Excuse me, if I said probably Ukraine, I meant I would like Ukraine to win.
Okay.
But I don't. But Ukraine's not going to win.
Well, guess
I don't
what?
Think anybody actually believes that.
Okay, but here's the problem.
Do you think they're going to win?
The president of the United States wouldn't answer that question the way you did. He called Vladimir Zelensky a dictator.
Yeah. Well,
absurd.
If he comes out here and starts saying starts talking all this trash about Putin like Democrats want him to do, you can wipe negotiations with the country, with Russia, off the table. Because guess what? Ukraine has no power.
So let me ask you a question, Dave. Let me ask you.
You're also not answering the question.
I am going to answer. I am going to answer the question, but I want to respond to what you just said. Let's be very clear here, okay? Sure. Vladimir Putin has been offered concessions by Donald Trump, dangerous concessions, and we had Pete Hegseth the next day talking about how Ukraine cannot enter NATO. That is the main reason why Putin invaded Ukraine. They've also, and land. We cannot reward an evil, murderous dictator, which you and I do agree on. We can't reward evil, murderous dictators for invading countries. That's number one. Number two, I would say that one could make the argument that maybe we've given Ukraine a little bit too much as far as weaponry is concerned. We're not sending them bags of cash, but weaponry. At the same time, though, while I'm 50-50, I will answer a question the same way you answered yours, but also in a different way. While I'm 50-50 on this is because Putin cannot win this war. Here's what happens if he does. And by the way, I disagree with your assertion that Ukraine has no chance to win. Other countries need to help a little bit more than they have. That is
that's not going to happen.
Okay, so hold on.
In the real world, and you can say that, but you're a smart enough guy to know that that's somewhat of a pointless statement because it's not going to happen.
It's not pointless, and I'll tell you what can't happen: offering Putin concessions and giving him what he wants, and that's exactly.
And guess what? Guess what's going to happen? Exactly that, because Ukraine cannot win this war.
The man.
I don't want them to. They don't. Have
so
they literally don't even have the men.
So you're okay.
What world do you think Putin's not going to win?
Okay, so here's where we really disagree. You're okay. You're setting a precedent where you're okay as an American for giving concessions to an evil, murderous dictator who invaded our allies. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives. And what you are saying is, let's concede, let's give him what he wants and everything he wants. Hold on. No, but hold on.
Okay, sure.
That's the reality of this. What you are saying is, and you seem to think, and you're talking to me about reality, and you think Zelensky's just going to say okay and raise the white flag?
I'm not saying he's going to say okay, but like I said before, whether he says okay or not, he doesn't have the negotiating power. And I don't think, respectfully, Brian, you're hearing that. He doesn't have the power. Ukraine cannot compare to the U.S. and Russia, period. The end.
Okay, so going by your standards, hold on. Going by your standards now.
Do you disagree with that?
I'm going to answer. I disagree. Going by your standards, okay, you're saying if an evil, murderous dictator invades a country, if they, quote, don't have the power, America should give that evil, murderous dictator everything he wants, and your reasoning behind that is
I didn't say everything he wants.
Well, that's what Donald Trump is doing, Dave. With all due respect.
No,
give me a break. What is the reason?
Giving him everything he wants.
What is the main reason why Putin entered Russia? Why or entered Ukraine? Why? Tell me why. What's the main two reasons?
Territory back.
Thank you. That's one of them. What's the other one?
Are you talking about in terms of territory or?
What are the? Okay, there are two main reasons. Well, anybody would tell you this. Why Putin entered the Ukraine? You just did mention one of them, territory. But by the way, Donald Trump is offering him territory, even though Zelensky won't agree to it.
That was an inevitable outcome.
Okay.
Regardless of if Biden, Kamala, or Trump is in office.
That's one of them. What was the other one?
I'm not sure what the other one is.
He does not want Ukraine in NATO. That is evident, and that is a fact. And here's the thing, Dave. Those are the two concessions that were offered to Putin. Trump offered that to Putin. So when you say he's not getting what he wants,
here's the other side of that coin. The other side of that coin is we continue a war with Russia for years and years and years and years until what? Russia has infinitely more men than Ukraine. They can last.
All right, so let's go with this for a second. Hypothetically speaking.
Do you think that that's not true?
First of all, I think your assessment and your being okay with conceding to an evil, murderous dictator. Here's the problem with that. This is what you're not.
I'm tired of being in 20-year wars.
Okay,
that's my point.
Guess what? Donald Trump has threatened to put troops on the ground in Greenland. He's threatened to put troops on the ground in Gaza. So please stop it.
What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
Because you're the one who's talking about how much you hate war, and then you voted for a guy who's threatening Greenland, the Panama Canal, and he's threatening to put troops on the ground in Gaza. You voted for this guy. If you're so anti-war.
In Gaza, I mean, we've been funding that. We should pull the hell out of there. And look, Trump's.
What do you mean? Wait. What do you mean? What do you mean pull the hell out of there? We don't have any troops on the ground there. We don't have troops in Greenland.
What I mean by that is we should stop funding that stupid war in Israel and Palestine.
Oh, so we should have troops on the ground and displace 2 million Palestinians who many of them don't want to leave. We should threaten and have troops on the ground there.
I'll answer that question for you if you'd like me to.
Go ahead.
The one main gripe I had with Trump when he was running was I couldn't stand his take on Israel and Palestine. And so I'm in agreement with you that what he wants to do there, I think, is completely ridiculous. By the way, not like Kamala or Biden was really any better with Israel and Palestine, but that's a completely separate issue. I do agree. I think his thing on Palestine and Israel is ridiculous.
But Dave, hear me out. Hear me out on this, Dave, okay? In the first 4 weeks of Donald Trump's administration, Ukraine-Russia conflict is not better. I think one would argue it's much worse now than it was a month ago. He's just called Zelensky a dictator. He has pissed off Canada and Mexico. We've gotten literally nothing in return with the 25% tariff threats. We've had.
It was a 30-day.
Okay,
for 30
right
days,
now.
We did get things
no, we did not. The Mexico. No, we did not. I can go over those with you and give you facts. 10,000 troops. We had 15,000 at the border when Biden was in there, and Trudeau offered. $1.2 trillion for border security when Joe Biden was president in December. A fentanyl czar is not going to do anything when under 1% of the fentanyl that's coming into this country is coming from Canada. So respectfully, sir, no.
So how do you think? Well, fine, that's a different subject.
No, it's not. I'm talking about concessions. We're talking about the 25% tariffs. Hold on. I wasn't done yet, though. He's also released a bunch of violent insurrectionists from January 6th, some of whom are either dead or back in jail. I
told you I disagree with that.
I know you disagree with it. I'm just giving you the list of the things he's done in the last month. He blamed plane crashes on DEI hires. He's put Elon Musk in, really President Musk. Why do I say that? Daytona.
He's not a president.
Okay, well, guess what?
To say this is like a quirky little comment.
First of all,
he doesn't have any actual power. But
he doesn't have actual power, yet he has access. He doesn't have any power, yet he has access to all of your personal information and mine. What is he? If he doesn't have power, then why is he doing press conferences in the Oval Office? And why does he have more of our information, social security numbers, and all of our personal information, and he won't tell us what he's doing with it? He won't share his own financials with us. And then we're told if he has a conflict of interest, he's the one that's going to police himself. And you're telling me you're okay with that?
I think a lot of that's absurd. But look, I agree with you. But at the end of the day, it's nice to see that a ton of. I mean, do you think that budgeting shouldn't be cut? I mean, we're
there is a okay. So hold on, let's talk about that.
He's going to be in a conflict of interest. Can you point to anyone in the world that wouldn't be in a conflict of interest if they had a position where they're cutting?
So why do you? Okay, I'll answer that.
That
I'll answer that by saying, why do you think he donated $400 million to the Donald Trump campaign? He just cares about America so much. Come on, I want you to answer this question honestly.
Sure. I mean, you're asking because he wanted Trump to win, and he wants
him
to win.
Why?
Because he didn't like what Biden and Kamala were doing to the country.
So you think? Hold on.
Americans didn't like either.
So you think he donated $400 million to the Trump campaign simply because he just didn't like some of Joe Biden's policies?
Sure,
that's ridiculous.
Sort of personal benefit in it. Sure.
There you go.
There are billionaires that donate to each party.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the difference. Sure. We're not talking about somebody who donates $500 or even somebody that donates $1 million for.
I didn't say 500 or $1 million.
No. Hold on.
There are billionaires that donate to both parties that donate millions.
And
of dollars.
guess what? Here's the difference. The Democrat Party doesn't put one of those people in charge where Elon Musk is in charge in all of our information and in charge of Doge, and they don't keep changing.
You're right. You're right, Brian. Actually, what they did instead was completely downplay how brutal the administration was the last administration. And then they got their asses kicked in the election because they wanted to tell Americans that everything was peaches and cream when we had a president who could barely spell his own name.
Okay, there you go again.
Combat Putin.
Let me tell you something.
War. I mean,
first of all,
this is why Trump won, and you don't want to hear that.
First of all, the reason why Trump won, with all due respect, Dave, is because I think there's people out there like you that are extremely complicit and you don't realize the danger that Donald Trump is. For example, you called into the show, and I'm happy to have a respectful conversation with you, and I think for the most part, we always do.
I agree.
However,
you're a nice guy, Brian.
I appreciate that, and I think you are as well. But here's my issue. You called into this show, and you didn't seem to bring up the fact, I always have to bring this stuff up, that he called Zelensky a dictator today, and he said Ukraine started this, but yet you don't bring any of that stuff up, and you bring up, geez, I think we've spent too much money on the war.
Well, because obviously talking to you, my time is limited, and I wanted to talk about things that I view are more important. Look, Trump says stupid nonsense every day. I completely agree.
But it's dangerous, Dave. It's not just stupid. It's
what's
dangerous.
More dangerous is us sending hundreds of billions. When is it going to end? So we can just constantly say, well, Putin's bad. Okay, yeah, and then more people die and more Ukrainians die. They don't have men, and you didn't really want to engage in that conversation.
So
Putin still has over
I did engage in that conversation, and my take is very, very clear. We should not be rewarding evil, murderous dictators for invading our allies. It would be like if hold on. Let me give you and I'm going to give you a real world example. After 9/11, if Canada decided to give Al-Qaeda concessions, would you have been okay with that?
I'm not sure what that even means.
I will tell you exactly what it means. Vladimir Putin is responsible for lives of hundreds of thousands of people that are now gone. He invaded he invaded our allies, okay? Al-Qaeda decided a terrorist attack in America. They wanted to get rid of, wipe off thousands of innocent Americans. Sadly, they were able to do that. They're both terrorism. They're both evil. And what I'm telling you is after somebody, I'm not going to even say the M word, but ends the life of hundreds of thousands of people, we're supposed to, another country, give concessions to Vladimir Putin and reward him, because that's exactly what.
Again, what's the other alternative to just continue in a fruitless war against Russia?
I'll tell you what the alternative is.
It's not a sarcastic question.
I'm going to give you an honest.
What is it?
And I'm going to give you an honest answer. And I'll start by saying, if Russia wins, and what I mean by win is Vladimir Putin gets what he wants. He gets land. They're not in NATO.
Right.
Then I'm going to tell you what is going to happen down the road. He is going to invade more countries.
That's where I disagree. I don't see, people want to say he's Hitler. He's evil. I completely agree. But Hitler was a unique evil. I don't see Putin trying to invade all of these other countries. He has a bone to pick with Ukraine. I still don't agree with it. But he's not trying to take over the world like Democrats want us to think he is.
Okay, so he's not trying to take over the world, and you don't think he would do this again, even though you're rewarding him with attempting to take over a country and rewarding him with land, which Zelensky will never agree to, and rewarding him with concessions and making sure that Ukraine doesn't get into NATO. And yet you're telling me that you're okay with that, and if we just give an evil, murderous dictator what he wants, everything's going to be fine and dandy, and Vladimir Putin will leave the world alone. Dave, with all due respect, you've got the blinders on, and I disagree with you, but I do appreciate your call. We do have some people on the super chat that are trying to chime in here, and I know there's a lot of people on hold. I kept Dave on for a while there. The number to call, by the way, is 702-221-7283. Relents, thank you for your donation. The Art of Appeasement coming soon, he says. It will be a tremendous book. Only the Bible and the Art of the Deal will be better. Well, The Art of the Deal is a book that I will never read. There's no art in this deal of rewarding evil, murderous dictators for entering other countries, our allies. Darren, thank you for your donation. Says, not the left or right, but I hope Americans are not too lazy to get off their couch and march in Washington and say enough. I agree with you, Darren. And listen, there have been marches, peaceful protests, all across the country, quite frankly. All right, let's get to some more phone calls. I think we have one more super chat. Nancy, thank you for your donation. Nancy says, if Russia wins, other countries will be invaded. Ukraine is Russia's test to see if the world will allow it. So simple to follow the bouncing ball. Nancy, I could not agree with you more. And I think that's something that Dave failed to understand. Sir Brooks, thank you so much again for your donation. We appreciate you. Let's go to Laura Lee, who's calling from Washington. Hello, Laura Lee.
Hey, how you doing? I'm the veteran you spoke to last week.
Oh, good to hear from you again. What's on your mind today?
Well, a couple of things. I just want to say quickly about that guy who just called in. I don't think he realizes that Ukraine is holding off Russia from taking over our NATO allies.
Correct.
And
correct. And that's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about him.
Right.
I'm worried about him going into Taiwan. I'm worried about Putin taking over other countries. And what are we just going to? Are we just going to reward evil dictators? Then what message?
That's what I'm saying. And the more support, and what he doesn't realize is that we're not sending them, like you said, bags of cash. Where the jobs that have been created here to produce the weapons that we send to them,
right?
We're actually not even sending them the new ones we produce. We're sending them all our old ones, and we're reproducing our new stock.
Exactly.
And all the money stays right here and goes into our people and our country and our jobs.
Laura Lee, why is it that there are MAGA supporters out there that fail to understand those basic facts that you just eloquently pointed out? Why is that?
Because they want to give in to the hate and just go along with what makes them feel good, and what makes them feel good is hate. They don't give a shit about our allies. They just want to live off of fear and hate and anger. And it's bullshit because they're pissing off all of us veterans, and they don't realize that these people are fighting for their lives in their own sovereign territory. It's like, how would they feel if somebody came in and tried to take, how would they feel if Mexico came in and tried to take Texas back and New Mexico?
Laura,
because that was their property.
You're right. And Laura Lee, here's the kicker on this, right? You served this country, and thank you so much for your service. You're a hero. And you should take it personal. Now, we all should. Offering concessions to an evil dictator. We all should take this personally, calling Zelensky a dictator. But you serve this country so that I can go on the radio every day, and you're a hero, and I appreciate you. And you will always have a platform on this show. I'll tell you that. Thank you for your service. Thank you, by the way, Lisa, for her very generous donation on pushingthelimits.live. Shakra, thank you so much for your donation. Dennis went on pushingthelimits.live. Sharon, I appreciate your donation as well. And Ernest, very much appreciate your donation as well. Appreciate all of you that are going on my website, pushingthelimits.live. We appreciate you. All right, it's time for the MAGA Destroyer. Let's go to Darlene calling out of Oklahoma. Darlene, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. Now, listen, I have a message for Dave.
Okay,
Dave,
FCC regulations, though, Darlene, but go ahead, PG-13.
Oh, no, I know.
Okay.
Anyway, I just want to tell Dave, instead of standing here yapping to Brian about their yapping about, get out and do something. If you want to help Ukraine, let me tell you something. I'm a very pretty much poor person, but every now and then I even send Ukraine $20 because they do need help. And if you don't think they don't need help, just today, Russia bombed the children's hospital, Brian.
It's horrible. I did hear about that. And I got to tell you, Darlene, we cannot, when I say we, I'm not just talking about you and me, and I'm not even talking about America. I'm talking about the world. The world cannot allow Vladimir Putin to win. And what do I mean by win? If the war ends and he takes some land from Ukraine and Ukraine doesn't get into NATO, Vladimir Putin wins. He gets everything that he wants. And here's what's really interesting about that phone call with Dave. I asked him, what are the two most important things that Putin wanted when he invaded Ukraine? Because he had said that, well, we're not giving Putin everything. I said, what are the two most important things? One of them is land, and the other one is making sure they don't get into NATO. Dave agreed with me. So he contradicted himself. If we offer Putin any of those things, guess who the winner is and guess who the loser is? I think you know. And the world, the world cannot afford Vladimir Putin winning. Can't afford it.
I know. I have one last thing to say, Brian.
Yes, ma'am.
I want everybody to remember, you cannot spell felon without Elon. And I want y'all to think about that.
Oh, I don't disagree with you there, my dear. Darlene, it's always good to hear from you, and I really do appreciate your phone call so very much. No money, thank you for your donation. It's always funny to say that. No money, thank you for the money. He said, keep nailing those MAGA morons. Oh, you got it, my friend. I'm not changing what I do here. I'll tell you that. That's for sure. WV is West Virginia. Shelly is calling from West Virginia. What's up, Shelly?
Hey, Brian. Wow. That's all it's one thing I have to say. If Trump lets Putin have what he wants in Ukraine, then don't you think that, or MAGA, do they not believe that Putin will come back and take another bite at the apple?
Well, here's...
I mean, really?
That's, you know what? That's my entire argument. My entire argument is if you reward an evil... Listen, we could make a comparison to a child. And I don't want to compare children to Putin because maybe that's bad. But in this aspect, if you reward somebody for bad behavior, what's going to happen?
It's going to continue.
Thank you. You're going to continue to do it and maybe even double down on it. And listen, I'm just making an analogy to that just so maybe some of my MAGA friends could just understand this. If you reward Vladimir Putin for invading a sovereign nation, he's going to do it again. Now, it might not be in a year. It might not be in 2 years, but he's going to do it again. We can't allow him to win. And if you offer him land like Trump has already done, or you promise him that we're not going to let Ukraine in NATO, he's going to do it again. And I'm going to tell you something. Vladimir Zelensky is not a dictator, and he's also not the kind of guy that's going to back down.
And can I say something else?
Yes, please.
This is off of that subject, but when it comes to Elon Musk going into the Social Security Administration and the IRS, when people, MAGA people, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
When they do not receive their checks and their benefits that they paid into, I might add.
Yep.
They are going to get so pissed off, and they will turn on Trump, maybe some of them.
No question. I don't disagree with you, my dear. I wish that there were more MAGA people out there that had some of the logic that you had. Thank you, Christine, by the way, for your very generous donation on PTL, pushingthelimits.live. We appreciate you. Julie, thank you for your donation as well. Natalie also made a purchase on there. Tina did as well. I appreciate all you guys very much for supporting what we do at PTL. Thank you so very much. And I already mentioned no money. Thank you so much. I'm going to continue to call out the MAGA morons. There's certainly no question about that. I'm not going to certainly change what I do on this program, and I would hope that you guys would trust me on that one. Number to call is 702-221-7283. Thank you to Miss Loveseek, who says, I was going to say that Musk is in the VA system digging in our records and trying to take away our service-connected disability pay. Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me, Miss Love. Elon Musk is the president while Donald Trump is playing golf every day. This is now the third day in a row. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you would like to be a part of the conversation. Alicia, thank you for your donation. The next time someone brings up Ukraine, please tell them to Google the Budapest Memorandum. That's some good advice, Alicia, and we do appreciate your donation as well. Programming note, we have David Pacman that's going to be joining us here in just a few minutes, so you're certainly going to want to stay tuned for that. That's going to be coming up here in just a few. Alberto, thank you also for your donation. All right, let's try to take a few more phone calls here. I was going to say steal a few more calls, kind of like the way, I guess, the way that, how should I put this? Caroline Leavitt claims that $4.5 trillion was stolen in Social Security. That was a lie. Don Jr. is still spreading that lie, by the way. Let's go to Katie's calling from Massachusetts. What's up, Katie?
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
I've called in a couple of times. How you doing?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Good. I had a couple questions if you have time for it. Slash comments. My first is, what do you think is stopping the Democratic Party from stepping up and doing anything, which we've talked about?
Well, I don't know.
Times.
Well, let me start there. I don't know what they can do other than push back and hold press conferences. I mean, Donald Trump is the guy that's in power. So the Democrats, you can blame them for not winning. That's one thing. But what can they do right now? I think you need more Jasmine Crockett's. You need more people that are louder voices. I think that's a good start, but there's only so much they can do, right? I mean, if Donald Trump wants to give concessions to Vladimir Putin, there's not a lot the Democrats can do other than speak out on it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I agree. And I guess the main question is what do you think kept them from stepping forward, knowing that this could possibly happen? It happened in 2016. And preparing for this,
I believe,
like having someone out front,
right,
just like Trump was.
I think Joe
He was
Biden,
campaigning this whole time.
Joe Biden and Democrat leadership should have called out Donald Trump every single day and saying that he was a Putin puppet. They should have done it every day with Tulsi Gabbard. They should have done it every day with Donald Trump, and they didn't do it enough. And now look where we're at.
Well, I also feel like it would have. I don't know if they could have had someone out front campaigning for that party, just like Trump was doing, maybe attacking him perhaps, but also telling, trying to get people on board with what the Democrats, their policies and stuff like that.
No doubt. I mean,
what stops them from having a front man.
I mean, I agree with you. I'm very disappointed in Hakeem Jeffries, and I think Democrat leadership, they need to be more vocal. Lil Son, thank you for your donation on the Super Chat on YouTube. I completely 150% agree with you. The Democrat leadership has been weak. And now we are succumbing. I shouldn't say we, Donald Trump is, and MAGAs are bending the knee to evil, murderous dictators. Listen, when he started saying he was sending love letters to Kim Jong-un, I knew we were in trouble. When he sided with Putin over our own CIA and FBI, I knew we were in trouble. I didn't think it would get to this point. I knew we were in trouble. I didn't think he'd be calling our allies and Zelensky, thank you, Hannah, for the donation on the Super Chat. I didn't think he'd be calling Zelensky a dictator. He did that today. Make no mistake about it. Zelensky is not going to raise the white flag. He's a tough cookie. Doesn't matter what Donald Trump does or says. He's not going to raise the white flag. It's not going to happen. All right, so before we go to break, I want to play you a little bit of audio. And we'll take more phone calls, by the way, later in the show. I know we have a lot of people waiting on hold. You're welcome to sit tight, be patient, and I'll get to your calls a little bit later on in the program. But we have a very special guest that's going to be joining us here in just a few. His name is David Pacman. He's one of my favorite podcasters, very popular, really smart, does a great job. So as you know, we get phone calls from people every day, and it is so ironic because the guy that called in earlier today, his name is David. He called in maybe a month or two ago, somewhere around there, and he was blaming David Pacman for the reason why Kamala Harris lost the election. And this is how I got connected with David Pacman, because he heard this call. I want to play this for you. This is a tidbit of it. David Pacman did a segment on it. Here's how it went down.
A MAGA caller called a Vegas radio show and brutally attacked me, but then it was brilliantly turned right around on him and his dear orange leader, Donald Trump. This is super interesting. Let's take a look at it.
These people like David Pacman, Luke Beasley, and a lot of these Democrat, TikTok commentators and have their YouTube channels, they've earned this reputation of constantly talking down to people and acting like David Pacman is known to just be this very elitist person.
Okay.
I love that I'm known for that. That's the thing I'm known for.
Hold on, David. I want to give. I promise I'll give you a chance to finish.
Yeah.
You don't like people that talk down to people. You don't like David Pacman. By the way, I don't think David Pacman talks down to people. I think he's actually very respectful. Who do you think talks down to more people, David Pacman or Donald J. Trump?
I agree that Trump talks down to people.
No, that wasn't my question. No, but hold on, that wasn't my question. Who do you think talks? Who do you think talks down to people more, Luke Beasley and David Pacman, or Donald J. Trump, who, by the way, is the president of the United States?
Talks down more.
Okay, so don't you think that's more? Don't you think that's more concerning? Someone who is the leader of the free world instead of a media personality? Wouldn't that bother you more? Why did you vote for Donald Trump then?
What is Brian getting at here? Different standards for different people.
There you go. Different standards for different people. That's exactly what I was getting to. So anyway, I got in touch with David Pacman, and I was able to I'm not going to use the term coerce, but David was nice enough to, gracious enough to come on this program. Coming up here in just a few minutes, he's going to be joining us. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're still taking your comments, questions on the YouTube Super Chat if you want to make a donation. And we appreciate everybody that's gone on my website, pushingthelimits.live. And so David's going to be joining us next. Thanks, by the way, to the official gaming bar of the PTL radio show, Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. We love Jackson's, including the Pass the Puck contest during Vegas Golden Knights games. You go in there during a Knights game, you have a chance to win up to $500 in free slot play. Great food, great atmosphere. We love it. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Get in that Super Chat. Anything that you think I should ask David Pacman, I will gladly do so. He is going to be joining us momentarily here in just a few minutes, so you're not going to want to miss that. Pushingthelimits.live. Please check out the website as well. And as far as people that are on hold and people that are looking to chime in, we have Tyrone in Baltimore. We have Kava on the line. We have Chris calling out of California. Joseph calling out of California. We have Julie calling out of Tennessee. Sit tight. I'll do my best after this interview to get to all those phone calls, and that is what I love about doing this show every day. There's a lot I like about it. I have some of the smartest listeners out there, man. I really do feel that. And you guys call all over the country. We got a call from UK the other day. I think it's got like almost 200,000 views on YouTube. People all over the country, people all over the world, a place to vent, a place to talk. And I really love the fact that we have so much diversity in our listenership. If you listen to crusty white guys doing right-wing echo chamber radio, it's the same demo every time, but not here. I love the fact that we have men, women, people, every color in the crayon box that call into this show. I wouldn't want it any other way. I want you guys to know that. All right, so we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, the man himself, David Pacman, is going to be joining us. I call him Pac-Man, but David Pacman is going to be joining us. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with David right after this. You're not going to want to go anywhere. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you could be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and food. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercials, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at RadioYou101.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Doing this radio show, you get a lot of interesting people. Don Lemon does this show all the time. He was a fan of my show, hit me up, and now we're friends, and he does my show a lot. So I grew up listening to Howard Stern, right? And when I heard Howard Stern talking and praising about this guy, I said, this guy must be really good. I've heard about him, but I've never really listened to his show because I really don't have time doing my own show. I don't have a lot of time. But I started watching David Pacman's content, and I said, wow, this guy's really good. I could see why Howard Stern likes him. And I've been religiously listening to his commentary every day. Somebody called into my show and played the audio. They were saying David was responsible for Kamala Harris losing. Obviously, that's ridiculous. David saw that. He talked about it on his show. I emailed him, and the man himself, who's got a new book out, The Echo Machine, How Right-Wing Extremism Created a Post-Truth America. That's out in late March. David Pacman joining us right now on the show. David, thank you so much for being here, my friend. I appreciate you being here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here, David. Wow, so much to unpack. Let me start by asking you this. What do you make of Donald Trump today calling Vladimir Zelensky, quote, a dictator, and yesterday saying they started the war? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, it leads me back to 2016, 2017, when we started saying there seems to be something going on here. And it didn't have to be Putin and Trump in the back room making a plan. It's just that Trump at a fundamental level is really enamored with these guys. He sees the way that Putin and Xi and Kim Jong-un and others, he's just impressed by it. Trump's impressed by two things. It's authoritarianism and it's people who have more money than he does. And that sort of explains his relationship to the Russia-Ukraine war. And it sort of explains why Elon Musk is now running the country.
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to this on your show. I mean, Donald Trump going to, and taking a spin around the track at Daytona on Sunday when like several states were underwater, people were losing their lives. He's played golf now 3 days in a row, Monday, Tuesday, and today, costing us, the taxpayer, more money. And yeah, I agree with you. Musk is basically the president. What do you make of this guy playing golf every day and going to the Super Bowl? What do you make of this?
He doesn't seem very interested in being president right now. I think he likes the idea of what can get me prestige, power, and money. Those are kind of like the three prisms through which he analyzes, is anything worth doing? But he, quite frankly, doesn't seem to want to live in DC, doesn't seem to want to deal with rules and oversight. And the best thing he's figured out right now is put a bunch of billionaires in charge. He'll mostly hang out at Mar-a-Lago playing golf. And, you know, can you blame the guy? I mean, he's declining. He's getting up there in age. He already did this and it led to, you know, more legal trouble than he's ever had in his life. I kind of get it. I think he saw it as I have to do it to stay out of prison. Check. Okay. He did it. And now he'll do as little work as possible.
I agree with you. What do you make of these members of his administration? Tulsi Gabbard, I believe, is a Russian asset. That's why the Kremlin was celebrating Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's done this show before. And I just think he's a kook. He's a tinfoil hat kook, and he's dangerous. People like Kash Patel, who I assume is going to be leading the FBI, who had a hit list, as you know, in his book of people that he wants to go after. A lot of unqualified people like a Pete Hegseth, for example. Did you think members of his administration the second time around would be this bad?
Yeah, I did. I mean, of course, I didn't know a year ago that Pete Hegseth would be the Secretary of Defense, but there was every reason to think it would be worse, and there's sort of a few reasons why. Number one, when you don't have any more campaigns to run, you're usually disinhibited. Number two, as the decline continues, we can only imagine that the behavior will become more erratic. And then number three, self-preservation. And that is sort of the name of the game for the second term. So I did expect it to be this bad. What I didn't expect was that it would be so insane in just the first 30 days.
Yeah, I didn't either. I agree with you. We're just joining us, David Pacman. He has a new book that's going to be coming out in late March, The Echo Machine, How Right-Wing Extremism Created a Post-Truth America. You know, I see you, David, on a lot of television shows, Piers Morgan example of that. And it seems to me that they try to shut you down. You bring the facts, as I try to do on this show every day. And Piers just throws things at you. And I remember, you know, when you got into it with David Rubin, for example, and I thought you destroyed him. He's just a jerk, I think, and you just destroy him. What do you make of going on these shows? I think there's way too many people on the panel. People sometimes don't get a word in edgewise. What is that experience like for you? I mean, I've talked to Don Lemon and some other friends of mine, and they don't even like doing those shows because they feel like they get treated, in my opinion, the way you were treated.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. And one of the things that, I mean, listen, let's not make this specifically about Piers because this is much broader than that. I do not believe that the kind of debate bro 4, 6, or 8 panel
fiasco of people yelling and talking over each other is really the way to figure out the truth. And so I do it to a degree because you've kind of got to play the game. You want to get out there in front of new audiences that aren't just the people that already know about me. Yeah, there's reasons to do it. I can't say that I enjoy it. I think there are people who love this internet blood sport stuff. I'd rather just figure out the truth. And these debates are often a referendum on who's most articulate or who gets the most time to talk, whose mic is turned up, and who yells. That to me is not the way to ascertain the truth of anything, right? So I do it with some hesitation. It's not what I live for. What I really think is better is thinking through what I want to say and explaining it on my show and getting feedback. And then if I get something wrong, I'll correct it, but I don't need someone yelling at me.
Agree. I remember your interview with Patrick Bet-David, and these are guys that consider themselves businessmen, and you're schooling them on basic economics 101. Were you a little bit surprised at, I hate to use the term ignorance, but I will in this situation, when you guys are talking about the economy, they don't know basic economy 101 that people would know as a senior in high school. Did that surprise you?
It always is a little bit of a surprise, but at the same time, success can also be driven by personality, timing, connections, perseverance, all of which are valuable, right? Like part of my success is because I happened to be the right age where I could mess around on YouTube when news and politics was just starting on YouTube. If I started now, I highly doubt I would be as successful as I have been. So I don't say timing, odds, personality, all that stuff really matters. But the takeaway is you don't really need to understand how tariffs work. That's not anywhere in there in terms of dictating business success or any other kind of success. And I don't know if you saw the last time I was in Vegas, actually, I did this interview with this guy, Sean Mike Kelly, Trump supporter, and he believed that China pays the tariffs. And it became 20 million views when I explained to him, you know that American companies pay the tariffs, right? And he didn't know that. And again, it's successful business podcast didn't know basics. And so I'm not surprised by it anymore.
Yeah, shocking, really, but I guess we shouldn't be surprised by it. I'm curious, where do you think I want to ask you some questions about the Democrats, but let me ask you this. Where do you think this country will be in 4 years from now when we're talking about the economy, when we're talking about immigration, when we're talking about the NASDAQ, gas prices, inflation, you name it. As a whole, David, where do you think the country will be when Donald Trump, if he does leave office, we hope he does?
Here's my thought on this. In the first term, pre-COVID, thanks to Trump doing very little, the economy was mostly fine. And I try to really separate my partisan views from just the facts about the economy. Trump's only real accomplishment during his first term economically was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, or whatever it was called, of 2017. And yeah, it was the standard Republican stuff of tax cuts for the rich. Okay, fine. Like it was exactly what we expected. But the economy was on a trajectory where it didn't really bend the arc very much, and things were still mostly good. And I said it at the time. It wasn't because of Trump, but it was despite Trump. COVID hit, then we got Biden for 4 years, now we have Trump. If Trump takes the advice that he took last time and just kind of gets out of the way, the economy might end up being okay by the time it's all said and done. In the first month, egg prices are up 30%, the plane crash stuff is scaring me, the tariff chicken games are scaring me. The more Trump does, the worse the economy is likely to be. So I'm holding out hope that Trump gets out of his own way and just kind of lets things happen in a way where it'll just kind of be the trajectory we were on under Biden.
You have to run into, or you don't have to speak to them, but MAGA trolls on a daily basis, right? I get some of those calls every day. How do you have a discussion at all with somebody who still thinks Trump won the 2020 election? How do you have a discussion with someone that thinks Dr. Fauci was the one that invented the coronavirus? Like, do you just say to yourself, okay, I can't even talk to that person? Because I'm at the point now, David, where I'm just like, get lost. You're an imbecile. Like, I don't even know what to do with these people anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you, and this is why I've pared down that sort of content significantly because it is definitely kind of outrage bait, and we all are shocked at how clueless some of these people are. But I am now, especially now as I think about writing a long form book, who's going to read that and really go through those ideas? These are different sorts of platforms and conversations that I want to have. But when I choose to have the conversations, what I try to do is very often, and you do this well also, very often it's sort of like throwing 10 different things at the wall. They'll go, the economy was terrible under Biden. You go, okay, which metrics informed that opinion? And they go, well, inflation. And you go, inflation was 2.9% when Biden left office. And they go, well, he bowed down to China. How? They go, well, some other thing. And what I try to do is say, let's pick one thing. Sorry, I just hit my mic. Let's pick one thing. Let's pick one thing and just see if we can come to the facts on that one thing. And it ends up being 10 minutes about something that seems kind of pedantic, but you very quickly realize that they're just not operating with a shared understanding of the facts. And then what can you do? You just say, okay, have a good day. I'll talk to the next caller.
Right. Yeah, I struggle with that every day. Sometimes David, you're a really nice guy. And I'm like, I can be a jerk sometimes. I can't put up with it anymore. Maybe some would say I'm a little bit too aggressive, but I can't handle it anymore. I just go at them the same way. When Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. I think that worked back then. Politically speaking, I'm not sure if it works now, but I wanted to ask you this. I don't know if anyone's ever asked you this question. If you had the opportunity today to be in a room with Donald Trump, there's no cameras, it's not for your show, and you had the opportunity to have a conversation with him, what would you say to him, if anything?
Every time I'm asked this sort of thing, what would you ask X person if Y scenario? And it's hard to come up with one thing that seems to really encompass the gravity of the situation. But what I'm personally curious about with Trump is, I believe that his current public persona is completely contrived. I'll tell you what I mean. He's pretended, I believe, to be religious now for a decade. I don't think he's religious at all, but it's kowtowing to the religious right.
Yep.
I believe that he remains pro-choice, as he has always been. I don't believe that at age 68 he became anti-abortion.
Right.
I don't think he gives a damn about trans sports and, quote, men and women's sports, as he calls it. I would just try to get him to level with me and go, you don't really believe, you don't really care about this stuff, do you? This is just something contrived for your political persona. If I knew he would be honest, that's kind of where my curiosity is.
That's very interesting. I kind of like that. I wonder if you were on the golf course with him and you guys were just playing around to golf, if he would admit that. Maybe he would.
Maybe.
Possibly. I don't know. A couple more quick questions and we'll let you run, David, and I really appreciate your time. I do want to get to your book. Let's talk about the Democrats for a moment. My take is Joe Biden should have stepped down much sooner. 3 months was not long enough for Kamala to campaign. I also felt like her campaign was maybe a little bit too careful with her from the beginning. Listen, I don't know if it would have changed if she did the Joe Rogan show, but I thought she should have done it, or at least have Tim Walz do it. I thought Josh Shapiro would have been a better pick. Those are my criticisms. And look, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, thank you for your service. I think now it's time for them to get out of the way and let some of the other rising stars of the party be who they are, like the Jasmine Crockett's of the world who did this show a few weeks ago. I think we need more of those people on the left. What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree with that? What are your thoughts?
I agree with a lot of what you said. I liked Josh. I thought Josh Shapiro was a more capable candidate. I worried that by introducing a Jewish candidate that it would sort of coalesce anti-Semitism and make it even more about identity. Like, I think there was something smart about going with the white guy as VP as the counterpart to Kamala. But on a personal level, I think Josh Shapiro is absolutely phenomenal. I think the one area, I don't know if we disagree, but I think that the first moments of the Harris campaign actually were really good. I think at first she was giving different and dynamic speeches each day rather than what became the same speech every day or multiple times a day. They were going with the "these guys are really weird" stuff, which I believe was working. Republicans tried to laugh it off, but I think they were laughing because they realized it was working. They got away from the "these guys are weird" stuff. And in March of 24, I went to the White House with a few other creators, and we met with Kamala Harris. This was before we knew Biden would step down, before all of it. And it was a completely different Kamala Harris than what ended up coming out in the media. She was dynamic. She was on her feet answering questions about everything from AI to tech to economics. And I thought she could very easily be president. And then you get to the campaign, I don't know who to blame, right? I don't know if it's handlers, focus groups, consultants, or what it is. It was not good. It was not good. So I agree with you. Biden should have gotten out early. I think that there should have been a more robust primary, although I believe Harris would have won it anyway. But I think that it would have been better to do a more robust and serious primary. I think it was winnable. I don't think doing Rogan would have won it, but I think a broader progressive media ecosystem. You know, I've said this on some other shows. When Trump goes and hangs out with the Nelk boys for 3 hours, he tells 1,000 lies, but it doesn't matter because it feels unscripted, it feels relaxed, and it feels much more like you'd rather hang out with Trump than Harris. And that has so much value.
Agree. And by the way, that meeting at the White House, plenty of my friends were there, JoJo from Jers, Joanna Carducci, and others. And they told me some things very similar to what you just said. And I just think they were too careful with her. I agree with a lot of what you said. I don't blame Kamala Harris for anything. I thought she did a great job in the debate. I thought she did the best job she could have done. I was disappointed that Joe Biden didn't step down earlier. Do you think the Chuck Schumers and the Nancy Pelosi's, it's their time maybe to step aside and let a younger generation come in? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the average age here, you know, we talk about the next generation. In some sense, the next generation 60, right? So it's like we might actually need to go a couple generations. And this is not about being ageist. This is simply, I want a diversity of ages that is more representative of American demographics. And so I want the older folks with their experience and their gravitas to be a part of it. But I think we also need to be looking at the bullpen. And, you know, I think J.D. Vance is a disaster. But generationally, I don't know about 40. I think he's 40 to be VP. But 45, 46 as a VP, you know, is it a Buttigieg? Is it? I don't know who it is. But I do think that we need a little more age diversity.
Agree. How dangerous, I always wanted to ask you this, the Sean Hannitys, the Mark Levins, the Laura Ingrams, the Tucker Carlsons. You know, a guy like a Mark Levin never debates a liberal. And I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same way I feel, many of these people on the right, if you challenge them the way you do every day, they see it as a personal attack. It's one thing if you call somebody a name, but when you challenge them on their positions, many people on the far right, at least to me, see it as a personal attack. How do you see it that way?
Only with some of them. I think there's a pretty broad range. Like I remember when I interviewed Dick Morris, the former Clinton friend who became just a whacked out right-wing guy. When I challenged him on just, you know, nominal things, he just hung up and ended the interview with me. And so that's one side. On the other hand, you know, I want to give credit to people whose politics I find despicable, like a Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager, I challenged him. We disagreed. He did not take offense to being challenged. I then brought him on moderating a debate against a streamer named Destiny, who some know as Stephen Kenneth Bennell II. And he was happy to be challenged and participate. And so I think I'm not praising his views, but I'm just saying he was willing to take any question anybody was willing to throw at him.
Well, that's good. I give him credit for that. I've emailed him back and forth. We've spoken. I want to give you the opportunity, David, to talk about this new book you got out. I believe it's out March 25th, if I'm not mistaken. It's called The Echo Machine, How Right-Wing Extremism Created a Post-Truth America. Talk to me a little bit about this book and why people should get it.
So here's the main premise of the book. Number one, to understand how we got to where we are today, you can't start with the last election or even with when Trump became a candidate. You've actually got to go back to the civil rights movement. That's when this entire radicalization of the right started. I won't tell the whole story now because it's in the book, but the idea here is this is an arc. Trump didn't cause it. He was the beneficiary at the tail end. Once we understand that, then we say, what are the alternative models for what works? And I think there's a bunch of models around the world. I look at 6 of them in the book. And then once we understand that, I sort of explain, now in the situation we're in, where so much has been lost, what sort of activism works, what does the left need to do with media, et cetera. So that's kind of like the arc of the book. I hope people do buy it. You know, one of the really interesting things is my show's completely independent. I'm not, part of any media conglomerate or network or anything like that. There's the assumption you can't have a successful nonfiction book unless you have like an MSNBC backing you or one of the biggest 4 publishers in the world backing you. We have enough pre-orders of this book right now that it's possible we might make New York Times bestseller.
Wow.
If that, I don't know that it's going to happen. We'll see, right? If that happens, it would just reinforce the idea that you don't need the TV networks necessarily anymore. You don't need the legacy publishers necessarily anymore. So I'm interested in 2 things. Number one, I want to prove that you can successfully do a nonfiction book without that backing. Yep. But also, I think the timing and the subject matter of the book is critical to understanding what's happening right now and what's next.
And if people want to pre-order the book, correct me if I'm wrong, David, you go to davidpacman.com/echo, right? And that's where...
Right.
That's where you can pre-order the book. I would highly recommend anybody do that. I'm certainly going to do that. Well, David, listen, if anybody calls into this show and blames you for the reason why Kamala Harris lost, I'll send it your way. Okay, man?
Or if they blame me for anything, right? Even if it's even if it's correct, right? If they don't like my new mustache and they say it's bringing on the downfall of the party or whatever, send it over.
I will. We get calls all over the country, and we get calls from the UK and Canada. Most of them are friendly. Some of them are right-wing buffoons, like those who blame you for the reason why Harris lost the election. David, I love what you do, my friend. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate you. We have a lot of the same friends out there in this industry, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on. Keep up the great work, my friend. Good luck with this book, by the way, as well.
Brian, thanks for having me, and keep up what you're doing.
Thank you, David. That means a lot. Really appreciate his time. That's David Pacman, everybody. Check out his book. You can pre-order it now. Go to davidpacman.com/echo. It's called The Echo Machine, How Right-Wing Extremism Created a Post-Truth America. I think me and David have a lot in common, other than the fact that he has about 1 million more subscribers than I do. Actually, probably more than 1 million. But I just started on YouTube like 6 months ago, at least being active on YouTube. But I love what David does, like his show, which is an independent show. My show's independent as well. Nobody tells me what to do. Nobody pays me what to say. These are my own thoughts, my own opinions. And I really love what David does. I think he's just great. We need more David Pacmans out there. I call him Pacman. It's Pacman. I know how to pronounce his name, but I just like saying Pacman. I don't know. It's a cool name. What do you want me to say? We appreciate David for coming on. And I did mean that when I said I think he's one of the best in the business. He is fantastic at what he does. And hopefully at some point down the road, I know he's a busy guy, but hopefully we can get David back on the program again soon. I just think he's awesome. So I said we would get right back to the phone calls because I know a lot of people are waiting to get on. I also said I get a lot of calls from people, not just all over the country, but all over the world. And this call is no exception to that. We have a call from the UK. Paul is joining us from the UK. Paul, what's going on, man?
Hi. Can you hear me okay? I'm on this funny phone thing.
You sound loud and clear, my friend. Go right ahead.
Yeah, okay. I called in the other day. And I thought I'd call back. Obviously, every day in American politics has more impacts on world affairs. But as you mentioned, Trump calling Zelensky a dictator extraordinary. I think of myself as a critical thinker. I'm a mathematician. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's something that nobody's talked about, which I find very curious. And it's Elon Musk being so, the president being so dependent on him. Right.
Yep.
Now, what really that thing in the Oval Office when Musk deliberately humiliated Trump. There's no question what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. He deliberately humiliated him. He owned him in front of the world. In normal times, Trump wouldn't put up with 1/10 of that. We know why he vilified Fauci. He vilified Fauci because Fauci was getting attention. But quite rightly in that case, Fauci is not an attention seeker. everybody's eyes were on Fauci because he's the guy who could save us.
Right.
But Trump still picked a fight with him because he didn't like the fact he was center stage. Now, Elon Musk does exactly the same thing and sticks it right in his face, and Trump doesn't do anything. And I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but here I go. I think I don't think Putin's got anything on Trump. He doesn't need to. All he has to do is flatter him. A guy like Putin makes mincemeat of guys like Trump.
Yeah.
This is a KGB guy. Trump's like a baby to him. He can make him lick his boots.
Yeah.
And Trump would think he'd won.
Yeah.
But what my feeling is that Musk's got something on it, and just speculative. I know it's speculative. I know.
Interesting.
No
Okay,
hard
so
theory.
you're so
Let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's say Musk did get him to enable him to win the election in some means or another.
Right.
And Musk had that information, which if he released it, not only would Trump be known as the election cheat, but Musk wouldn't be done somehow. Musk wouldn't be found guilty in any way. Suppose he had something that big on him. Something that big, because I just don't see any reason why Trump would let Musk do this thing.
So here's what I'm going to say to that.
And lock him.
Paul, hear me out. I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah.
I think Elon Musk and Vladimir Putin both have something on Donald Trump. And I think that's the reason. Now, I do feel that Donald Trump admires dictators. But I think that it's something, between Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin, I think Putin has something on Trump. I agree with you. I think Musk has something on Donald Trump, and I don't know what that is either. But for whatever reason, maybe it could just be the fact that Musk said, I'm going to put almost $500 million into your campaign. But if you win, here's what you have to do for me. You don't have to pay me back, but you got to put me in charge of this, this, and this. So I think it could be a number of different things. But I think, as we both will probably agree, putting a guy like an Elon Musk in this position, by the way, the position, according to the White House, keeps changing every day, is very dangerous for America. It's dangerous for the world. But Donald Trump doesn't care. And I think that's what makes this really, really dangerous.
No, I disagree with you about the campaign donation. This is why. Trump's already got that. Once he's got it, he stiffs you. So I don't think that would be the leverage. I respect what you're saying, but I think he's already got what he wants from you.
Okay, so Paul, you might be right on that. But here's why I would respectfully disagree. We're not talking about a $3 or $5 million construction contract. We're talking about almost $500 million and one of the richest men in the world. It's one thing to screw over a private business that you owe $500,000 to that you stiff. And we know that he's done that multiple times in his life. We're talking about the richest man in the world with a tremendous ego right up there with Trump. I'm not saying you're wrong. You might be right, but that's why I disagree with that.
Yeah, I think you've got that's a fair point. I still feel it's something bigger than that.
It could be.
I think it's something really, really bad.
What is the biggest fear?
And I think, by the way,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Putin's got something on every American politician.
Sure,
if he can,
sure.
If he can get it, he's got it.
What does it say about
I'm pretty sure he's got something on Lindsey.
Oh, I'm sure. Lindsey Graham. What does it say about our president? He called Zelensky a dictator today. And then yesterday he said Ukraine started the war. You live in the Ukraine, sir. What do people in the Ukraine think about that? The president of the United States calling the president of Ukraine a dictator.
I mean, I'm British. I'm European. The Second World War's closer to us. I'm also Jewish, like you. Mm-hmm. For him to say a thing like that is so despicable. If I could be in the same room with Trump, I'd take a risk and smack him.
Well,
I would take the risk of getting
I can understand.
Security.
I hear your frustration. I don't want you to do that because you seem like a very nice man. Hey, I appreciate you calling from the UK, sir, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Yeah. Please call back anytime. Awesome call. 702-221-7283. Tyrone is calling from Baltimore, a little bit closer. What's up, Tyrone?
Hey, Brian. Good afternoon. Good to talk to you. Hey, look,
Thanks.
a couple of things I just wanted you to see if we can chew on real quick. Listening to the previous conversation that you had about with the previous caller, I don't think it's as nefarious as we want it to be. I think it's a straight enemy. He's got something that Elon has that Trump will never be.
Yeah.
The world's richest man.
Yeah.
And he's all about money. You know, look at his life. What he surrounds himself with gold this, gold that, everything extravagant, living above his means, bankrupting companies. Meanwhile, Elon is half his age, almost half his age, and he can buy and sell Trump 100 times over.
Yeah.
So it's like if you had an older brother and you were on the JV team and he's on the varsity team, you kind of looking up to that older brother, except there's this age dynamic between them where it's flip-flop.
Yeah.
And it's just that he's the richest man. He's enamored with it, just like he's enamored with Putin. It's not as elaborate or as intricate as we think it is.
Yeah.
Let me say this. I was listening. You talk to David Pacman. I like to catch his episodes too. But let me say this. I called in last week and I said something about the way that Democrats are communicating. They are missing opportunities because they're still
no doubt,
the Marcus of Queensberry rules.
Yeah, no doubt.
If they really want to attack Doge, all they have to do is say, hey, put out the list of some Doge.
Listen, I talk about this every single day. I couldn't agree with you more. Listen, the Democrats lost. It wasn't just Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. The Democrats lost to a 34-count felon, liable abuser, okay, who's had 25 women that have come forward accusing him of abuse. So we have to put a large portion of the blame on Democrats. Yes, I put a lot of blame on people that have been sucked in, that are part of the cult. Obviously, I talk about that every day. But we can't be complicit in just blaming the people who voted for Donald Trump that believe the nonsense. We have to put some criticism on the Democrats that have also put us in this situation. They lost. It's unacceptable that this guy got back into the White House. I want to thank Estella for her donation. She went on pushingthelimits.live and made a donation, as well as Lisa. Thank you for your purchase. Nancy, thank you for your donation. David, a guy by the name of, I'm not going to give out his last name, but his first name is David, and he was a great player for the San Antonio Spurs. If you're an NBA, I don't know if that's the David who made the donation, but I appreciate that. They went on pushingthelimits.live and they all made donations. Also in the super chat, we appreciate all of you today for helping out. 702-221-7283. Kava's next. Hey, Kava, what's going on, man?
Hi, Brian. How are you doing today?
Good.
So I wanted to touch on a point that you made when it comes to MAGA and them supporting Donald Trump. So I find it interesting how MAGA wants to blame Joe Biden. They want to blame Kamala Harris for everything. And yet their guy is the same one who raped multiple women, who's a 34-count convicted felon, and yet they blame everybody else. Donald Trump, like you said, takes no responsibility for anything. He likes to point the finger, especially even the fact that he's president, he points the finger at everyone else.
Yeah.
It's like, if you can't take responsibility, you have no business being a president. If you cannot
I agree.
hold yourself and anybody else accountable, you are the problem.
This is unprecedented, Kava. I'm up against the clock here. This is unprecedented territory that we are in right now. We cannot normalize this. Donald Trump called our ally, Mr. Zelensky, a dictator today. We have never been in a situation like this before, not in my lifetime. We had a president who called our allies and the president a dictator and said they're the ones that started this. That's what Trump said. That's like saying the Jews started the Holocaust. That's how cut and dry this is. This is the president of the United States. I do want to go to the super chat. Alyssa, thank you for your donation. Says, if Doge finds fraud, then the information needs to be sent to Congress. MAGA says, oh no, they are corrupt too. MAGA wants to, emperor. It's idiocracy. I agree. I agree with you 150%. Nostalgic, thank you very much for your $19.99 donation. Love the show, Brian. Been listening for months without missing a show. However, I have one gripe. Here we go. On Friday, January 17th, you called Cenk pathetic for saying he won't decline going to Mar-a-Lago. You're wrong. Thoughts? I didn't call Cenk pathetic just for the Mar-a-Lago situation. I called Cenk pathetic because he was sitting right next to Charlie Kirk. He went to Charlie Kirk's event. Charlie Kirk is a known white supremacist sympathizer, and Cenk didn't question him on anything. Didn't question him on the DEI stuff. Didn't question him on his defending white supremacy. Didn't question him on paying Kyle Rittenhouse to show up at some of his stupid Turning Point events. Cenk sat there and he was Mr. Nice Guy. That is a coward, and I would call that pathetic. Yes, I think Cenk is pathetic, and I can give you more reasons, but those are a few. Hope I answered your question, and thank you for the donation. 702-221-7283. Julie is calling out of Tennessee. Hey, Julie, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. I've been looking forward to the David Pacman segment.
Yep.
David Pacman segment.
Yep.
I actually caught a short a couple months back of him saying a Las Vegas
Yep.
podcaster thing.
Yep.
I actually went down to the comment and put down your information.
Oh, cool.
For the show. So when I heard that he was coming on, I'm like, holy cow.
Well, I appreciate you doing that. Listen, so I'm going to give you a quick story, if I may. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for doing that. So I was the first interview with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking about the brainworm. Do you remember that brainworm story? So I did like it was actually a long interview. It was like 25 or 30 minutes Robert F. Kennedy Jr. gave me. And we talked about a lot of different issues. So I'm having breakfast the next day, and all of a sudden my phone is blowing up and they're saying, hey, they're playing your interview on The View with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm like, really? And I had learned that some of my listeners had sent my interview to some producers at The View. I had no idea that happened. Erin Burnett from CNN played one of my interviews on her show last month. And I didn't even know, because listen, I don't watch CNN religiously, and I didn't know. And they had played my stuff, which I thought was really cool. So sometimes when people play my stuff on other shows or they're talking about me, Dan Bongino, who is an absolute douchebag, did 30 minutes about me like 7 or 8 months ago when I had interviewed a wacky doctor who was anti-vaccine. And I don't listen to that idiot, but I went back and I listened to it because it was comedy, Dan Bongino. I had no idea that InfoWars did a 25-minute segment about me because my listeners told me about it, because I don't watch InfoWars because they're scumbags. But so thanks to people like you, you spread my information out there to other shows. I would highly recommend everybody do that. It helps me. And I think if it's pertinent information that you think that they would want, send it out to them, man. And I'll go on any of those shows. InfoWars called me a scumbag and they called me a bunch of names. And then when I talked to one of the producers, I said, I'll come on your show and defend any of my positions. They're cowards. They didn't want to do it because they don't want to be challenged. And that's what's really unfortunate about this whole thing. Dan Bongino, another coward. Let me tell you something. Any of the people that I talk trash about, they're welcome to come on the show and I'll say it to them. But the other side, the people that will talk trash about me, well, they don't want to invite me on their program. Oh, no, he's this, he's that. Oh, okay. Well, I'm happy to defend any of my positions. You know why? Because they're cowards. Just like so many of those Republicans in Washington, D.C. today, so many of those people on the far right that will not engage with people that disagree with them. I talked to David Pacman about that. They see it as some sort of attack. And it's cowardly, man. But I will say this. One of Kanye West's strong supporters. I think he'd be the first one to admit that. He has like over 1 million followers on social media. He's been defending Kanye West when it comes to the hateful rhetoric. He's been defending Kanye West when it comes to, the anti-Semitic rhetoric and all that other stuff. His name is Myron Gaines. He's been all over the TVs and very controversial guy. He has agreed to do the show tomorrow. So I would like to think we are going to have a very spirited debate tomorrow. So at least there are some people that are willing to have the conversation. We'll see how that goes tomorrow. That is going to be an epic debate, I am sure. And I hope all of you are looking forward to it as much as I am. I also want to thank David Pacman for joining us on the program. The official gaming bar of the PTL radio show is Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. So many great promotions at Jackson's Bar and Grill, including the Pass the Puck contest, where you could win up to $500 in free slot play just for being an active player in their casino. Great food, great atmosphere. Please check them out. Jackson's Bar and Grill. I also want to thank everybody that has been making donations, and those particularly in the super chat. And there's been a lot of people really since I started the website, quite frankly, pushing the limits.live, but a lot of people that have been very generous with making purchases. If you haven't already, we sell shirts, we sell beanies, we sell all sorts of stuff. on pushingthelimits.live. A lot of merchandise for PTL Nation out there at affordable prices. So please do us a favor. It's an independent show, just like David Pacman does an independent show. We have an independent show here helping us keep the lights on. Going to our website, being active on social media, liking our stuff on YouTube at PTL Radio Show. I think it was just 2 days ago where I said we were about to pass 70,000 subscribers. We're over 72,000 now. So we have all of you to thank for that, for being fans of this show. Same time, same place, 12 to 2 p.m. PST, Monday through Friday. To watch the entire show, go to my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show, where you watch the whole show live Monday through Friday. We're also on the FM AM dial here in Las Vegas, KSHP. We're also on the Occupy Democrats Network on Facebook. We're also on the Washington Press Network on Facebook. We're also on X. We're also on Twitch. Of course, we're on TikTok. I usually go live on TikTok when we take phone calls. But a lot of people are saying you need to go live on TikTok for the entire show. So I actually might start doing that. But we're 12 to 2 Pacific Standard Time. And, every day I'm going to be bringing you guys the most pertinent information, the biggest news over the course of the last 24 hours. Listen, I don't know what Donald Trump is going to say next. First, he calls Vladimir Zelensky a dictator. He might call the Pope the dictator next. I mean, I have no idea. But we'll cover it for you, and we'll talk about it. And one thing I will never do is I will never normalize it. I will never normalize Donald Trump, and I will never normalize the times that we are living in today, because they're not normal. And we need to stand up, we need to rise, and we need to do whatever we can to spread the word of the damage that this man, the orange orangutan, is doing to this country. My thanks to David Pacman for joining us. Please pre-order his book, and it'll be out in late March. Thank you all for the donations. Thank you all for the contributions. Thank you all for tuning in. I have some of the most loyal listeners, I think, anywhere. And I would also say some of the kindest and most intelligent and educated listeners that you will find anywhere. The proof is in the pudding with the phone calls I get every day, ladies and gentlemen, in the comments. So thank you so much. I appreciate all you guys. I love you guys. And I'm going to keep fighting and keeping up doing what I'm doing every day, so long as you're here watching the show and supporting what I do. Love you guys. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Thanks to Numchuck for working the phone calls as well as he did. And we will see you tomorrow, folks. Have a good one.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie?